It is Tuesday, the 8th of July, 2025. We're looking at a statement, perhaps an apology, put out by Reverend Dr. Colin Bossen, Senior Minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, arising out of the extremely offensive, verbally abusive, looking very much like anti-white racism, and certainly quite anti-Christian comments that his partner, Sade Perkins, made on social media over the weekend. So, 3 or 4 days ago. So he's minimizing things right off the bat. My partner, Sade Perkins, has made comments on social media regarding the horrific flooding that devastated Camp Mystic. Well, that's kind of vague, isn't it? It doesn't really go into any kind of detail in terms of what she said. Doesn't even say that they were offensive or abusive or racist or anything like that. Just comments. And I want to be clear that I disavow her comments. Well, duh. I mean, who wouldn't disavow her comments, you know? He could have said this a few days ago, should have said this a few days ago. If he had said this on Saturday or even Sunday in a public manner, he might have been able to stem the flow of public criticism, as it were. While she was not speaking on my behalf or on behalf of my congregation, I recognize that her comments have caused harm to many people who are experiencing terrible loss and anxiety. Okay, so I threw people in there. So it's interesting. He's saying she's not speaking on my behalf. Fair enough. She's not speaking on behalf of his congregation. Fair enough. One would certainly hope so. But then he just recognizes that her comments have caused harm to basically, victims of the flooding itself. Nobody else. When in fact, her words caused harm to a heck of a lot of other people, including the members, leadership of the First Unitarian Universal Church of Houston. So he says, I believe strongly that all people have inherent worthiness and dignity. This is based on the first principle of Unitarian Universalism. Fair enough, but if he did, he might be less, how can I put it, mealy-mouthed. And he certainly wouldn't be censoring and suppressing public criticism, which he actually has done. If you really, genuinely, strongly believe that people have inherent worthiness and dignity, well then maybe you shouldn't stuff a sock in their mouth when they're saying, hey, there's a problem here, which is unfortunately what he has done, and also what the First Unitarian Universal Church of Houston has done, and quite frankly what a heck of a lot of Unitarian Universalists do when anyone dares to criticize them. You raise any kind of issue about problems in the Unitarian Universalist Church, and you can expect to be silenced if they can silence you. So, yeah. Where were we here? Her comments were not in the spirit of the Unitarian Universalist values centered around love that my congregation and I share. Well, no kidding. In fact, her comments were A, extremely offensive, B, I would say verbally abusive in various ways, C, bordering on, if not actually, anti-white racism, and also some quite anti-Christian rhetoric. He says, that he and his congregation share Unitarian Universalist values. Well, not from what I've seen. Not from what I've seen. If you have Unitarian Universalist values centered around love, you don't go around silencing people who are saying, "Hey, there's a problem." And worse, I've seen worse. Anyway, I'm deeply sorry for the harm that this may have caused to the Camp Mystic families and the members of the community of Central Texas and along the Guadalupe River who are grieving or anxiously awaiting word about their loved ones. Well, yeah, I would certainly hope so. But he doesn't seem to recognize that a whole lot of people who are not direct victims or even indirect victims of the flooding in Texas, you know, were harmed or at least offended, seriously offended. I mean, he, you know, he's really not paying attention is what it comes down to. He's not thinking in terms of the interconnected web of the internet and all existence and so on. So he's limiting this to being deeply sorry for the harm this may have caused Camp Mystic families and members of the community of Central Texas, not even all of Texas, you know, and along the Guadalupe River, you know, like minimizing things, you know, and only those who are grieving or anxiously awaiting word about their loved ones, you know. And then the next thing he does is he apologizes to his congregation. You know, I apologize to my congregation who has experienced harm because of her comments. Well, yeah, no kidding. But it's very interesting. This is very limited in terms of who specifically he's apologizing to. There's a whole lot of other people he should apologize to that he's not here. It's very limited. Then he goes on to say, I will continue to pray for all who have been impacted by the flooding and for the many lives lost during this tragedy. I will continue to work to repair the harm this incident has caused. This incident, so like a single incident. Again, the language of minimization. But what I find interesting is he says, I will continue to pray. I could be mistaken, but I am under the impression that Reverend Dr. Colin Bossen is not a God-believing person. I believe he's an atheist based on his, you know, words in other, you know, contexts. So who's he praying to? So this may be just expedient, you know, like there's something called an expedient apology, you know, an apology that's put out there. It's more about damage control than anything else. Well, this is what this looks like. It's more expedient damage control than a proper and complete and genuinely sincere apology. I mean, it looks reasonably sincere. You know, yes, I'm deeply sorry for the harm. You know, I apologize to my congregation, blah, blah, blah. He's saying the right things, although he's leaving out a lot. There's like a lot of just leaving stuff out, not going to any kind of detail, being quite vague, not really saying what the actual harm was, and again, limiting it, minimizing it. So I'm really beginning to question the overall sincerity of this so-called apology. Like I said, it does look reasonably sincere on the surface, but it's definitely too little, and it's also too late. Like, seriously too late. Like, if he had even if he put this out as is on Saturday or Sunday, he could have prevented quite a bit of harm, or at least dampened things down a bit. But no, he was much too busy trying to silence people, much too busy trying to hide the evidence. So yeah. And there's no evidence of what Sade Perkins said here. Like, nobody has said, you know, what she actually, you know, what were her comments on social media? You know, what did Sade Perkins actually say? Well, that's easy to find out. Just Google Sade Perkins, or even better, use another search engine. Use a DuckDuckGo or Bing, or, you know, use 2 or 3 different search engines, because Google tends to hide stuff too. You know, like, you know, if you want to find stuff, you know, try some other search engines too. Anyhow, I will continue. Yeah, so yeah, the whole pray thing. Yeah, I'm not so sure. Anyway, what I find interesting is this: I will continue to work to repair the harm this incident has caused. So I guess he considers this to be work to repair the harm. I'm not so sure that it's. Yeah, it's a step. It's a sort of feeble little step in the right direction, but it's really not enough. And what's interesting too is this statement. It's on the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston's website, and it's interesting because that's all you can see on the website now. This apology, or these apologies, because there's also the board president up above there, they actually hide a whole bunch of stuff. So the whole rest of the website is hidden, because this is the only thing you can see when you go to the website of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston. So the whole business of concealing and hiding, and instead of just dealing with it, this is part of the problem. It's in the vagueness and lack of specificity of the apologies themselves. So yeah, it's really the absolute minimum that could have and should have been done, and it's at least 2 days late. You know, in terms of the harm to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston specifically, and to the wider Unitarian Universalist religious community, Reverend Dr. Colin Bossen should have put out an apology like this and pinned it to the top of his Twitter account, pinned it to the top of his Blue Sky account, pinned it to the top of his website, his own personal website, and so on. And something like this should have been posted on the Facebook page of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston on, for sure Sunday. By that time, by Sunday morning, you know, the shit had already really hit the fan. You know, by all rights, this should have been spread widely, or something better. Like this is not superb as far as I'm concerned. In real terms, a much better apology and disavowal could have been done. But at minimum, if this had been posted prominently on his personal website, on his Twitter account, on his Blue Sky account, on his Facebook page, and again on the social media First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, including their YouTube page. You know, maybe they should put out a video statement on YouTube. You know, I haven't seen anything like that. On the contrary, they're deleting people's comments and trying to hide everything, even after putting this out. So yeah, not impressed really. So that's it for now. I won't ramble on too much, but this, to me, like I said, it looks, you know, sort of sincere on the surface. I'm not going to say that he's not deeply sorry. I'm sure he's deeply sorry about the impact it's had on him personally and on his church. But I really wonder how deeply sorry he is in terms of the other people who've been impacted. Because he's not really behaving in a way that indicates that when he's, you know, silencing people who are, you know, criticizing Sade Perkins, extremely offensive and I believe abusive words. That's it for now.